Hi guys, I'm Ariel and welcome to my channel where I talk about my nursing journey. I make college related videos, all of that good stuff. So I took my TEAS exam today and I've had so many of you ask me questions about what the test was like, what to expect. As I'm sure you saw from parts of my video earlier, the whole experience was kind of a disaster. But that just goes to show you have to expect the unexpected when it comes to exams like this one. So I wanted to take a moment to come on here and kind of talk about the TEAS, talk about exactly what I used to study, how long I studied, my scores, so that you can get an advanced score and score in the 95th percentile like I did. I got an advanced score. And then in my reading, I got a 72%, which I'm really bummed about because I had done the best on that in the practice test, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Math, I got a 90.6. Science, I got an, an 87.2. And English and language usage, I got a 100%, you guys. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys about this today. So glad that it's over. I came home and took like a crazy long nap and just took a huge sigh of relief. Like I feel like I can finally breathe for a minute. So basically what the TEAS is, it covers 4 subject areas as you saw. So reading, math, science, and English. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the ATI books just so you know what to expect. It's basically, what they call basic knowledge of 65 objectives that you should know from grade 7 through 12. For me, and I went to Catholic school, a lot of these things I didn't know. Like I haven't taken A&P2 yet. I had my first an actual anatomy class this past fall semester, fall of 2021. So it also has 170 items that include 20 unscored pre-test items, all of which are 4-option multiple choice questions, guys. So, try to use process of elimination if you can on these. So the reading, there's 47 questions, 64 minutes you have. Math, there are 32 questions, you have 54 minutes. Science, there's 47 questions, you have 63 minutes. English, you have 24 questions, there's 28 minutes. And then, so each of those, though, there are pre-test items added on to that. So for reading, it's 47 questions, 6 pre-test items. So I think for science, I had 53 questions. 63? No, science, I think I had 63. No, 53 questions. Reading, I had 53 questions. Math, I had 36. English, you have 28. So for English, you literally have 1 minute for each question. For reading, the subject area and key topics are key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas. Math is numbers and algebra and measurement and data. Science is human anatomy and physiology, which makes up the majority of the science section. Then you have life and physical sciences as well as scientific reasoning. And then English and language usage, you have conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, and vocabulary acquisition, okay? Make sure to bring your photo ID, know your ATI student number, and your ATI login information, okay? You couldn't bring your phone in. You had to, I took mine on campus. So if you take yours at home, it's going to be different. But I had to lock my phone up. No purses, no, extra things you weren't allowed to have. So just so you guys are aware of that, be prepared. Be there early. Use the restroom before you test. You are allowed a 10-minute break between the math and the science portion of the TEAS for bathroom breaks. If you do plan on taking your TEAS at home, make sure you do the dry run, the remote proctoring dry run. I still did it anyway. You have to add the Proctorio extension to your Google Chrome, I believe you have to use, to your browser. And then, it makes you scan your ID. You do a, 360-degree room scan, all of those kinds of things. So be prepared for that as well. Again, expect the unexpected, any kind of unforeseen things. Like I had a car accident I had to try to drive around. The proctor was late. The computer system at the school wasn't working. So just remember, if you encounter any kind of difficulties, to stay calm, do your best to stay calm. And just, take that time to kind of breathe and center and focus and ground yourself and know that you've got this. At this point, you know what you know. And what you don't know, just take your best educated guess, okay? So, let's talk about how I studied. Now, people have asked me, do you have to study for this exam, even if you already took all your prerequisites? Yes. The TEAS is a different kind of animal. You have to study specifically for it. I will say for test takers, be mindful of your time. That's something that I wish I had done. With the practice tests I did from ATI, when I talk about, what I exactly used, we'll get there, but I just kind of did it leisurely at my own pace. So, make sure you really watch your time, especially on your math section. I almost ran out of time on that one. But yes, you have to study specifically for the TEAS. It's different from any kind of test that I've taken. It's kind of reminiscent of the SATs, but it's a little different. So, especially with the way the whole process works. So, how long did I study for? I knew about the TEAS when I got into nursing. Well, I got into nursing school. We're going to hope so. I'm manifesting it apparently. When I started taking my prereqs to get into nursing school. So I like to accumulate resources early. So, in online forums and groups and Facebook and Instagram and all of these things. I found out about the nurse Sam, and she has her TEAS Tuesday on Instagram. So I've been participating in that off and on for 2 years. I also heard about Smart Edition. So I have their book here. Back when I was in one of the TEAS Facebook study groups, I still am in them, but back in 2020, there was this girl. I wish I could find her. Like, I tried to go back in the posts and find her questions. She would post so many questions every day for us to answer in the group, and I really enjoyed that. So I've been getting my feet wet with this for quite some time. At that point, I had also downloaded the pink and white nursing school app. It used to be called Pocket Prep, but now it's pink and white. It's called Nursing School. And then the yellow and orange TEAS Mastery app. So I've been working with those all this time. In my opinion, the Nursing School app is good to get your feet wet. The TEAS Mastery app is better in the long run. So much so that I paid the $15 a month for the premium version of the TEAS Mastery app. Also, at that point, I was preparing to take my school's arithmetic test, and I'd been out of math for so long. It was my arithmetic placement test, and I knew I was going to have to take the TEAS anyway, so I got the TEAS Kiss It book from Jakar Lewis, and all my notes are still in here. In working out the problems and stuff, I went through this entire book over the summer of 2020. She's got different clusters. So I think it's 3 clusters, and I would focus on a cluster a week or a cluster every 2 weeks. So I think it took me about 6 weeks to get through the whole thing, and it prepared me for my arithmetic placement test. I passed that with flying colors, and it was so great in preparation for the TEAS as well. So much so that I really didn't even have to study the math part that much. So, since I didn't really have to study that much, I pretty much retained most of everything that was in this when I used it summer of 2020. I did take 3 math classes between then and now, including college level algebra. So I know that certainly helped. So I didn't really study the math. To be honest, I avoided it until the last possible minute, meaning that the week of testing is when I started, doing the math on the practice tests. I did look at a couple of Brandon Craft videos just as a brief refresher to make sure I was doing everything correctly. So that's why I was able to score so high on the math section. Sorry if you hear the noise. My cats are running amok. It's that time of evening for them. But yeah, I scored a 90.6 in the math. So, and math is math used to give me panic attacks in school. So, and my worst subject. So I can't say enough for Jakara Lewis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah. But yeah, I did watch a few Brandon Craft videos. As far as the math goes, I have my notes here. So you need to be able to interpret a pie chart on the exam. There were a couple problems where it would give you different percentages of different, sports or types of clothes or something like that, for example. And you had to calculate, the actual number of items that makes up that percent, back and forth, that kind of thing. Or if, 60% of students did this and 20% of students did that, what is the difference between those combined versus one who did something else? Stuff like that. There was a lot of fractions, a lot of calculating decimals, fractions, and percents. There was a lot of ordering from least to greatest. There were a couple area perimeter problems, which I struggle with the most. Geometry is probably my worst, just because I can't remember the formulas. Now, I was lucky enough to get a version of the test that the formulas were there for me. So one gave me the formula, I think it was for volume. One was, what was it? Volume. Calculating temperature from centigrade to Fahrenheit. They gave me the formula for that. But other than that, I didn't really have many formula problems. I had a couple word problems. I had lots of money problems and calculating discounts, or the original amount if you're given the discount in money value. I had one Roman numeral question, and there was also, I can't remember what it's called, but reading a scale. When you go to the doctor and they have that leveler scale. So being able to interpret one of those. So that's what the math section was like for me. My exam cut off when I had 3/4 of my math section done. So I had to wait for the proctor to come over and figure out her end of it before I was able to finish that. And I was taking a lot longer on my math test because I was going back, checking my work. I wanted to make sure I scored as high on the math as possible. So I literally, up until the last 30 seconds, was working on the math questions. So, tips for the math. If you are stumped on a math question and you don't know how to solve the problem, try plugging in the answers, from the multiple choice options to see which one fits, which one works best, which one is the answer that way. That was a great tool that I used. And again, watch your time, use process of elimination, and check your work if you have the time to go back and do so. Okay. All righty. So if you like Brandon Craft for math, if you prefer his learning style or his teaching style, Smart Edition has actually partnered up with him. So they teach, and this is the Smart Edition book, but he teaches their math modules. So that's absolutely great. You can use my code RE10 at checkout to save 10% on a Smart Edition. But yeah, for the math, just try to do as many practice questions, practice problems as you possibly can, just so that you retain the information. Oh, I had converting from milliliters to liters and deciliters to decaliters and stuff like that. So know your King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Jakara Lewis and Brandon Craft both go over that. I think Brandon Kraft is like King Henry drank Ucky chocolate milk, though. His is a little different, but whichever one works for you. And it's super simple and super quick to learn it that way. So that helped me a lot and helped me save a lot of time. So let's talk about the reading. So I used I solely used Smart Edition, okay, for my entrance exam. I did use the TEAS Mastery app for a while. So I started studying, like hardcore studying for the TEAS right before Thanksgiving. I still hadn't had finals from fall semester, but I was like, okay, I know I want to take it in January. My application is due in March for the program. I want to give myself enough time that if I need to retake the TEAS, I at least have another month that I can study for it if I have to take it again, which I'm not going to. I mean, I could. I'm upset at my reading score, but whatever. So I don't want to put myself through that again. But so when it came down to Thanksgiving time, I was out of town. So if I was out of town or had time on my phone, I would use TEAS Mastery, I would use Smart Edition, and I would use Nurse Hub. Now, Nurse Hub, I just use for practice questions. I didn't use them for learning materials. I just strictly use them for science practice questions. I did not use them for English practice questions. Did I? No, I did my English and my reading on through Smart Edition. So with Smart Edition, what I did is I took a pre-assessment for each subject to see what areas I needed to work on. Like it'll give you a breakdown online, like, okay, for reading, you struggled with key ideas and details. And then I would go over to Carolyn McAllister, who is like the guru of all English and reading TEAS stuff. And she is making new videos for T7 for those of you who will be taking that. But then I would go back and watch those particular videos. And I just watched her whole series, maybe like 1.5 times. And then I would take some practice questions, redo some practice questions on that. Now the reading, from ATI, I did purchase the Smart Prep package. For me, I felt like I didn't really learn anything. I feel like in terms of online prep courses, Smart Edition had the better course. I liked the way it was structured and broken down. It was a lot easier to follow. ATI, I just felt like it wasn't giving me the full information that I needed. I learned a lot from watching YouTube videos as well. I'm an auditory and visual learner, so YouTube helped me a lot. So channels for the reading, for reading, I used were Carolyn McAllister. She was great. But yeah, I did a lot of practice tests with the reading. I scored, so on the ATI practice tests, I did practice test B first. What are you guys doing? I did practice test B first, which people have said is most like the actual exam. I would agree as well. And I think I got an 80 or an 89 on the reading in that. And then the English, I got a 72. The math, I got a 90. And then the science, I got a 72. And then my score was a 79. Then when I took practice test C, my reading stayed the same. The math on practice test C was a lot harder. And then the science was a lot harder, and then my English stayed the same. So, but the reading on the actual TEAS was a lot harder than on the practice test. So that's why I'm really surprised about that. And I'm disappointed in my reading score, to be honest, considering I did so well on it in the practice tests. And I did worse on English. So, what are you guys doing? Stop. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, so that's how that went. So I'm pretty disappointed. I felt like the science section on the actual exam for me was easier than it was on the practice exams as well. The math on the actual T's I felt was harder than the practice exams. So reading I felt was harder, math I felt was harder, science I felt was easier, and English I felt was easier. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird. For me with the science, so I focused mainly on the science. I've only taken A&P1, which for my school covers the integumentary system, tissues, the skeletal system, and the muscular system, as well as the nervous system. I had to teach myself everything else. I have not taken chemistry in a long time. I did not focus on the chemistry while the teacher or the proctor told us to come back at 10 o'clock because we still can't get the test up and running for you. I sat and watched like 2 or 3 Tyler DeWitt chemistry videos, as I felt like the chemistry portion of Smart Addition was not enough for me personally. It may be for some of you, but for me personally, like I just couldn't wrap my head around the chemistry, at least in terms of the balancing equations part of it, because that kept coming up a lot, and the different types of equations or chemical equations kept coming up a lot. So focus mostly on the science. That's mainly what I use Nurse Hub for, and Teas Mastery, and the Smart Addition. Smart Addition was so super helpful for me with the science. As far as YouTube videos that I watched, because again, I'm an auditory learner, so I would listen to these lectures like first thing in the morning on my way to work, on my way home, if I had a doctor's appointment, on my way to class, like whatever it was, I was listening to a video of some T's related system. So I really enjoyed Doctors Matt and Mike. They have a great channel. Professor Dave Explains really helped me as I was struggling with the endocrine and the digestive system quite a bit. What else? Science with Susanna helped me a little bit, not as much as I thought it would have. But it was good to kind of get in the groove of studying for the T's. I still highly recommend her. What else did I use for science? I think that's pretty much it. Crash Course did not help me at all for T's science. Yeah, that's pretty much what I used. The Nurse Sam, of course, Beautiful Nursing on Etsy. She has a guide as well. So those are what I used for the science portion of the T's. In terms of what my T's experience with the science section was like I said, it was a lot easier than my practice tests. I hardly had any of that A&P2 test stuff on it. So I had to teach myself the urinary system, the reproductive system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the lymphatic or the immune system. I think that's it. Which is an F. But none of that really came up on my version of the test. My test was, I think I had like 2 or 3 maybe like life science questions. So that's I had 1 chemistry question, maybe 1 or 2 chemistry questions, maybe 2 or 3 scientific reasoning questions. I had 1 or 2 like questions about like states of matter, so solid, liquid, gas, that kind of thing, and volume and all of that. And the rest was mostly I had 2 urinary or renal system questions. I had 2 or 3 reproductive system questions. I had 2 or 3 immune system or lymphatic system questions, 2 or 3 hematology questions, like the blood. I didn't have any cardiovascular, which I had studied so hard for. I didn't have any digestive, which I studied so hard for. I didn't have any endocrine, which I studied so hard for. I still highly, highly, highly recommend studying those 3. Those are the big ones on the T's from everyone that I've talked to, friends who have taken the test, people I've talked to in groups. You want to know your blood flow through the heart. You want to know the order of the digestive system, the hormones that are secreted, from where they're secreted, the flow of food, the mechanical as well as the chemical breakdown of food. And you want to know the hormones, where these hormones are produced. Are they from the anterior or posterior pituitary gland? Are any of them produced in the gonads? Like estrogen is produced in the ovaries and testosterone is produced in the testes versus, FSH and LH and that ADH and oxytocin come from the posterior pituitary gland, and everything else comes from the anterior pituitary gland. That ADH affects the kidneys, that renin is produced in the kidneys, and what effect that has on blood pressure. I said the blood flow through the heart, how the immune system works, innate immunity, passive immunity, T cells, B cells, macrophages, helper T cells, hemoglobin, albumin. What else? What were you guys doing? Sorry, my kitty came up. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, mine was mainly, states of matter, some chem, scientific reasoning, and then I had a couple skeletal system questions, a couple muscular system questions, like specifically involving types of joints and names of muscles in the body, as well as names of bones in the body, and what, where in the body they're located. Are they part of the axial skeleton or the appendicular skeleton? And then the rest was all nervous system. I had a lot of nervous system questions. So we're talking about the axon, myelin sheath, synapses, neurotransmitters, sensory, motor, afferent, efferent, the flow of a chemical, electrical impulse through the nervous system, the CNS versus the ANS versus the PNS, autonomic versus somatic nervous system, voluntary versus involuntary muscular movements, all of those kinds of things. So pay attention to that. I almost forgot to mention, I had quite a few biology questions about the cells. So I had, about quite a few questions about the mitochondria, about proteins, ribosomes, the RER, rough, endoplasmic reticulum versus the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. What's the role of like the Golgi apparatus, all of those different organelles. So pay attention to those as well. I had 1 or 2 mitosis, meiosis questions. I didn't have any chromosome questions, but yeah, knowing the parts of the cell, what they do. I had a couple RNA, DNA questions about the purines and pyrimidines. So we're talking adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thiamine, I think. And uracil. So, the A binds to the T, and, in DNA versus RNA, it's the A binds to the U, and the C and the G bind together, like those kinds of things. So pay attention to that as well. Okay, so let's talk about the English section. I got 100% in the English section. I'm so surprised. And all the practice tests, I did the worst in the English section, and it ended up being my highest score, and I didn't study for it any more or less. I definitely felt like it was easier on the actual teas than in the practice test. That's just my experience. Again, I highly recommend Carolyn McAllister for reading in English. I watch Carolyn McAllister videos and then use this bad boy, as well as their online course. I worked through a lot of their subject specific questions. So the way Smart Edition works is that you have like full length practice tests, and then with each subject, and then you can also do subject specific testing, and then even more of a breakdown from that. So for like the science section, if you wanted to study one particular system and test yourself on that, you can do that as well. They have like 8 different practice, like full length practice tests on top of that, as well as like flashcards and all these things. So again, I've partnered with Smart Edition. I'm so thankful to them for helping me get this advanced score. I can't believe I scored in the 95th percentile. So I'll leave the link in the description below, or you can just use my code RE10 at checkout to save 10% on any of their offerings. That's ARI10. But English and language, yeah, I didn't really study for that any more than I had been. I will say with the English and language, be mindful. You have 28 questions and 28 minutes. Read carefully, read extremely carefully. You are a detective going through it with a magnifying glass. Look, punctuation was a big thing in there. Quotation marks, some, parts of speech and conversation, antecedents, pronouns, which part of a sentence, is out of place, in the sentence structure, compound versus complex versus simple types of sentences, that kind of thing. But yeah, really read every comma, like really compare each of your 4 options. Some of them look the same. Like a couple of times I like glanced over them and grazed over them. And then I really had to get close up in the screen and do a double take and read it again. Otherwise I would have gotten the answer wrong. So such minute, tiny details like the comma was out of place, or the W in the Wednesday, wasn't capitalized, or, everything else was right, but the punctuation was incorrect. There wasn't a comma before, if I said I'm going to the store, comma, she asked, comma, something. Might be mindful of those kinds of things. It's probably not the best example, but watch Carolyn McAllister videos and do practice questions. Now, in terms of the questions you guys asked me, I was asked if Nurse Hub is similar to the actual teas, how it compares. I don't think it compares at all. I think it's good for practice tests and practice questions, or, you're sitting waiting for a doctor's appointment and you want to do some practice questions, stuff like that. I used it pretty much like how I use the Teas Mastery app. Some of the answers were wrong with the Nurse Hub, or for some of the questions or the practice test portions, I'd have the same question on there more than once. So then when it did my score, it wasn't the most accurate. So just be mindful of that if you use Nurse Hub. But again, it's great for practice questions. All right. In terms of how ATI Smart Prep compares, if it was worth it, in my opinion, for me, no. I wish I would have just bought the practice test portion of it. So I wish I got, just the A&P practice test, which was a version of the test from 2009. You can take that as many times as you want. And then there is practice test B and practice test C. You can take each one of those twice. I did each of them one time, practice test B once, practice test C once. I was going to take it again the day before the exam, and the night before the exam, that day before, I had taken off work, and I just I just needed a day to just kind of chill. And then that night I did a little bit of review. I was going to do practice test B again, but I didn't. And I'm fine with that. I would say allow yourself some grace, give yourself some space and some time, and rest that day before. Maybe review like a couple loose ends, but don't go overboard, taking a full length practice test the night before. You should be doing that that entire week before. Okay. Someone asked if they should keep retaking practice tests like B and C so they can memorize the answers. No, because you could get that same, kind of question, but it'll be phrased completely differently. And then you may get it wrong because you memorized that particular question a certain way. I would say use as many different practice tests as you can. Like I said, Smart Edition has 8 full-length practice tests plus practice tests for each subject. Plus for the science, it's got practice tests for each body system. So, take practice tests from as many different resources as you possibly can so you can encounter as many different types and different wording of questions as you possibly can. Is there anything that I wish I would have done differently other than taking the test at home instead of dealing with the disaster at the school today? No. Am I still disappointed in my reading score? Yeah, I'm hurt about it. But that's just, the type A in me. I really wanted to score in the 80s. My school only requires a 58%. My school only requires a proficient score, but I still wanted to score in the advanced range to be as competitive as possible. So I'm happy that I did that. I scored in the 95th percentile. So for reading, I did better than 45% of the population who took this. So I'm disappointed in that. But then the math, I did better than 94%. Science, I did better or equal to 97%. And English was the 99th percentile as well. So again, here is my scores. And if you guys have questions or, about the TEAS or anything else, please let me know. Leave a comment below with your TEAS tips to help other students. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck on your testing. You got this. Stay confident. Don't let nerves get to you. Stay positive. Get a good night's sleep before. Drink plenty of water. Eat, well that week before. Try and be as low stress as possible. If you do work, try to take the day off before the test as well as test day. If possible, write some positive affirmations, pray, say your mantras, whatever you guys do to uplift you. I listened to, some Eminem on the way to take the test so I could feel, be feeling myself before. So please be sure, if you like this video, hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos through my nursing journey. The spring semester coming up and applying to nursing school. I can't believe I'm finally, after 2 years, able to apply to nursing school, you guys. I'm so thrilled, so happy, so excited. I've worked so hard for this, and I know you guys have too. But yeah, please be sure to share this video with someone who's also taking the TEAS. I have a video as well about the full list of resources from all of the resources I've compiled over the last 2 years, whether I use them or not, files to look for and apps and YouTube channels and all kinds of things to help you get the score you need so you can get into the nursing school of your dreams. But take care, guys. Bye.